Did you manage to survive the first round of your fantasy football playoffs in Week 15, but are you still looking for that extra edge heading into your semifinals Week 16 of the fantasy football season? Then stay right here with RotoBaller's early look at the Week 16 fantasy football waiver wire. I'm your host, Anthony Aniano. Happy to be with you here today as we take a look at some players still floating around and available out there who can help your team in the final 2 weeks of the fantasy football season. As always, folks, Yahoo roster percentages are our talking point, trying to keep it at players 50% or less. Recording this on Sunday evening before the late games, the Sunday and the Monday night games. That's the reason why we call it the early look at the waiver wire. I'm your host, Anthony Aniano, from RotoBaller.com and RotoBaller Radio. So make sure you head over to RotoBaller.com right now. Sign up using the promotional code HOLIDAY between now and the new year and save 30% on any of our premium passes, football, basketball, the upcoming MLB season, whatever it is you're looking for. Like and subscribe right here to the RotoBaller YouTube channel. And as always, download the RotoBaller app. It's free, so take advantage of that. Now, let's get right into it and these waiver wire additions for that stretch run, those final 2 weeks, and congratulations, those of you still alive in your fantasy football league. If you're streaming at the quarterback position and you're juggling those backup quarterbacks that so many are, Jake Browning still leads the way at the quarterback position, and he's still under 50% rostered on Yahoo.com at 47%. Another excellent game. He's averaging 28.1 PPR points per game in a 6-point per touchdown format over his last 3 games. Is the Bengals quarterback. This week, 29 of 49, 324, 2 touchdowns, 1 interception. Now, I said this on SiriusXM the other day. If you're juggling these backup quarterbacks, you're looking for touchdowns, you're looking at yards, and you're kind of ignoring the interceptions, they're going to happen. It's the reason these guys are backups. Browning with another interception, but 2 more touchdowns, 22.9 fantasy points. Nice game next week at the Pittsburgh Steelers. Also available of these backup quarterbacks that are my personal favorite, Nick Mullins of the Minnesota Vikings, 4% rostered, available in 96% of leagues. He threw for 303 yards, 2 touchdowns, 2 interceptions, 21 fantasy points. Good matchup against the Detroit Lions, who have allowed 23 passing touchdowns on the season next week. And one of the benefits for Mullins is the fact the weapons the Minnesota Vikings have. You saw Ty Chandler have a monster game, and the receiving core of Addison, Hockenson, and Justin Jefferson. It doesn't get much better than that for a backup quarterback. And finally, Joe Flacco just continues to sling the ball all over the field. 24% rostered. He goes for 25.9 fantasy points. Again, all of these quarterback points in a 6-point per touchdown format. 3 straight games now for Flacco of 20 or more fantasy points. A season-high 374 yards. He's thrown the ball at least 44 times in each of his 3 starts. 2 more touchdowns. He did throw 3 interceptions. Cleveland got the victory. He's got 7 touchdowns in 3 games this year. It's Flacco. They're on the road against the Houston Texans and a pass rush that put a beating on Will Levis this past week. Now, at the running back position, a couple of running backs to be mindful of. But before we get to them, 2 I'm not so worried about. And that's the Indianapolis Colts situation. People are going to ask about Trey Sermon. 0% roster. He went 17 for 88 after the Zach Moss injury. There was also Tyler Godson, another 0% rostered running back, who went 11 for 69, 2 catches for 10 yards as well. Both of them 8.8 for Trey Sermon, 9.9 fantasy points for Tyler Goodson. However, and this was after the Zach Moss injury, keep in mind, all reports are, though, that Jonathan Taylor looks like he has a chance at returning in Week 16 when the Colts go up against the Atlanta Falcons. So I am de-emphasizing these other Colt running backs because the reality is even if Moss is out, Taylor could be back and Trey Sermon still remains in a backup running back role. So don't go crazy on them heading into Week 16. But there are running backs I do like, including Zamir White of the Vegas Raiders if Josh Jacobs remains out. Zamir White still sitting at only 15% roster on Yahoo. Comes off a nice game on Thursday. 69 rushing yards on 17 carries. 3 catches for 16 yards. Got in the end zone. 17.5 fantasy points. Next week, the Raiders go up against the Kansas City Chiefs. And then in the opposite side of that, Clyde Edwards-Helaire is the number one running back to add of the week. He's 40% rostered. He is the primary ball carrier with Pacheco out. 13 carries for 37 yards, 4 receptions, 64 yards, and a receiving touchdown. 17 total touches for Clyde Edwards-Helaire. Finished with 20.1 fantasy points. Now, people are going to ask about McKinnon. McKinnon had 7 touches on the game compared to those 17 touches for Edwards-Helaire. Now, skewing McKinnon's stats was that he threw for a touchdown pass. It's not a common event. Don't count on it going forward. Okay? At the wide receiver position, a couple of wide receivers to be mindful of. Noah Brown leads the charge there at the wide receiver position. He's 60% rostered. Okay, he played well with Case Keenum on the center. Keenum looked for him often. 11 targets, 8 for 82, and the touchdown. 22.2 fantasy points. Third time this season he's had over 20 fantasy points. Now, Nico Collins, maybe he's back next week, maybe he's not, but C.J. Stroud should also be back, and C.J. Stroud has shown the ability to get 2 wide receivers involved with Tank Dell and Nico Collins, as well as Tank Dell and Noah Brown earlier in the season, so I'm not overly concerned about that. Tough matchup against Cleveland for the Houston Texans, but Noah Brown has shown enough that he should be in the conversation as a wide receiver 3, wide receiver 4 going forward. Josh Palmer of the Los Angeles Chargers, 29% rostered, was a favorite target of Easton Stick this past weekend. 4 catches, 113 yards, including the big play for the touchdown, 21.3 fantasy points. Tough matchup, though, for Josh Palmer, no doubt about that, against the Buffalo Bills. You saw what they just did to the Dallas Cowboys. However, if Keenan Allen is also out, Easton Stick will continue to look to Josh Palmer's way. And finally, Dontavian Wicks of the Green Bay Packers. One of the injuries of note this week was to Jaden Reed of the Green Bay Packers. Left the game with a toe injury and did not come back. So Dontavian Wicks, available in 97% of leagues. He was targeted 7 times, 6 catches for 97 yards in the loss to the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Christian Watson was out. If Jaden Reed is also out, Romeo Doubs has proven just to be inconsistent. Dontavian Wicks has 13 targets in his last 2 games, including the 7 targets this past weekend. 15.7 points going up against the Carolina Panthers. And finally, if you're looking for a tight end to stream, take a look at Tucker Kraft, also of the Green Bay Packers. He's available in 90% of leagues. 4 catches, 57 yards. He got in the end zone this week on 6 targets against, again, Carolina Panthers, who the Green Bay Packers are going against. It's 10 or more fantasy points now, 2 straight weeks for the Packers tight end, the rookie, Tucker Kraft. So to summarize, my top 5 waiver wire ads for Week 16, your fantasy football semifinal round. Number 5, Dontavian Wicks of the Green Bay Packers. Number 4, Josh Palmer, Los Angeles Chargers. At number 3, Zamir White, running back, Las Vegas Raiders. Number 2, Noah Brown, wide receiver, Houston Texans. And the number 1 ad of the week, Clyde Edwards-Helaire, running back, Kansas City Chiefs. All right, everybody, make sure you give me a follow on Twitter at @Aniano Fantasy, and we will see you next time right here on RotoBaller Radio.